Go live. Well, hey, good evening to you guys. How you doing? Ho, ho, ho. It is the holiday time of the year. Just had to get my beverage. Just drinking a little water this evening. I'm parched. How about you? Anyway, welcome back to the Crazy Gibberish. Boy, yesterday was busy, wasn't it? We did an AD&D live stream in midday, and then we came on back for more. We had Kyle Schuant on, my awesome co-host Kyle, straight out of Melbourne. That was awesome. Vinny, not a Bartolo, but in fact a Vinny. Good to see him. Hello to you folks over on Facebook who are watching. Everybody. Damien, good to see you. Okay. Well, I'm gonna hello, Chris. I'm gonna talk about a lot of interesting stuff tonight, and we're gonna get to things all in their order. But first, we got to catch up on the Star Wars Christmas Advent Calendar. That's right. Let me just switch over. Cambot, give us rocket number 9. All right, there we go. So we have the lovely Star Wars Advent Calendar that my darling wife got me last year, which I don't think you guys got to see all of. It is Star Wars minifigs in this wonderful arrangement here. And I will show y'all the pieces as they come out. Now, obviously, we're going to have a few pieces that we'll have to play catch-up with over weekends, because I don't do streams on the weekends, but maybe I'll do little short films of unboxings. But let me show you guys. I switched over to this camera. So this is day 7, a red stormtrooper. I guess that's from, that's either just Christmas themed or he is from the new movies. I don't have a lot of truck with the new movies, so I don't know if he's special for the new movies or what, but he's got a pretty cool blaster gun. So there you go. That's day 7. Day 8, a favorite of mine. And we'll put these guys in where they belong. A minifig X-Wing. Look at that. Is that awesome? This is the kind of thing that would be broken into little pieces. Like, oh, I had him upside down. Would be broken into little pieces, and well, because it's made of little pieces that you put together, but they would all be lost by like March. There would be like that much X-Wing fighter left, and then by April, like that much, you know, because you play with things when you're a kid. And remember, we don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing. Did the Stormtrooper come with a Lego boombox? I don't think so. I don't think so. He's not a Lego Stormtrooper member of Run DMC. One thing that I am going to share, and I thought this was pretty cool. So over the years, I've gotten Lego minifigs for Christmas that are Star Wars themed, and I love them all. One year I got in Indiana Jones. But the interesting thing is, the Lego minifigs that I got came out, they may have come out even before the prequels, some of them. But the Boba Fett, you pop his helmet off and his helmet can't come off. He's faceless. It's literally just a gray headpiece, but with no features on it. But the Stormtrooper, even though we never see 99% of the Stormtroopers' faces, well, I mean, just nameless Stormtroopers, we don't see their faces ever. But the Stormtrooper actually has a face. Appropriately grim looking. So Lego went that extra mile and gave us a nice one. So I'll put those back in. And here we are back to a nice, wonderful full screen shot. Don't let your kids play with Legos. Let them prove their worth with wooden blocks first. I like that. I had Tinker Toys, girder and panel, which was like an all plastic erector set, Lincoln Logs, lock blocks, and Legos when I was a kid growing up, and Play-Doh and modeling clay. And sometimes I just took a pocket knife outside and I whittled. I think that plays into my tinkerish nature. No, it is not from Adidas. Nope. So yes, I was quite happy to have this and share this with you. That Stormtrooper is mad he can't hit anything with that cool blaster. Yeah, that's probably the truth of it. You know, I do wonder what would happen if you threw Imperial Stormtroopers up against Imperial Guardsmen. Who would win that fight? Pokemon and screens. Yep. Why, you darn kids? So, if you couldn't guess by the title, I got an early Christmas wish. We had a computer here in the house that we decided is not being used, and I now have 2 displays. Well, I talked about having the second display yesterday, but I got the cable to hook up this monitor to the other output there. So it's, I mean, compared to the 27-inch dual 27-inch gaming monitors I've got over on the main PC, it's still not quite the same amount of acreage. Well, I mean, it's a little more because you measure diagonally, not width-wise. I don't know. But it'll give me more room to work, and you won't see stuff where, like, you know, I put a window on top of Discord, and then Discord is like, oh, I'm just going to freeze, and I'm not going to stream. So that will stop. That will cease and desist. So I'm very happy to have 2 displays. They're not the same display. They're not the same brightness. Like, this display over here is way better than this display over here. It's much sharper and much clearer. Although I guess I could go in and adjust the controls. But the important thing is not so much the picture quality as it is I have 2 displays, and I'm pretty happy about that. Little thing I noticed, the detention level scene in Star Wars, it was Luke that shot the most of the guards. That's interesting. Firefly was undoubtedly a popular series, garnering up to 4.7 million viewers per episode. Here's what to expect from the Disney reboot. Well, good for them. I wonder if Joss Whedon would be involved. Is he canceled? I don't know what his status is. He's kind of like Will Wheaton, where he says the quiet part out loud sometimes and gets canceled, but then he kind of weasels his way back in. But the way he treated the female lead of Angel was pretty atrocious, referring to her unborn child as it. Are you going to keep it? Charisma Carpenter, that's her name. Just the amounts of mental abuse that he heaped on people. He might be done. But then, you know, Hollywood embraced Roman Polanski and continues to. And look at what he did. So I don't know. I don't know if Whedon would be coming back to direct Firefly. Now look, I'm going to say something controversial here. I was not a huge Firefly fan. I appreciated it. I understood it, but I could see note for note where every reference came from, and Whedon's I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I should save this rant for another time, like after I get 1,000 viewers, like, and I have a buffer to burn before people start angrily unsubbing from me. I appreciate how good it was, but if you've seen Outlaw Star or Cowboy Bebop. And I mean, the whole lived-in universe thing is pretty much copied note for note out of Star Wars. So I don't know. I don't know. But Womp Rats aren't much more than 2 meters. You know Luke's a good shot. Chris, you make a very valid point. Give yourself one Delver token. Now here's a obscure bit of geek trivia. The toy that Luke is playing with in his garage, the T-16 Skyhopper, that is actually a model department prop. They were going to film a scene showing off what a good aerobatics that Luke could do, what a good pilot he was. And the mounting costs of the film meant that they couldn't shoot the low-flying sequence with Luke. Well, Chris, that certainly is a spicy take there. I won't deny you that a lot of people feel that way. As a fighter pilot, I was talking about using a rifle. Yeah, I think it goes either way. I definitely think it goes either way. Yeah. There's a question for you. Disney will have Captain Mal supportive of all government mandates because they're trying to help everyone. How's that narrative gonna fit? I mean, wasn't the overarching premise of the Firefly TV show because we all had to focus on the super special little teen girl who was rendered mute because of experimental government drugs, and Mal is definitely anti-government. Yeah, how's a reboot of Firefly gonna work again? Would somebody please tell me? They tie themselves in knots trying to retcon that aspect of Firefly, don't you think? But anyway, let's move on to other stuff because honestly, I don't give a fig about Firefly. I don't. I think that the cast was very talented. I think some of the casting was brilliant. Ron Glass did an absolutely above par job. And despite the fact that Joss Whedon is a nasty fedora tipping dude when it comes to his lack of beliefs, I thought in Ron Glass's character he actually handled the question of what would Faith 500 years in the future look like. I mean, Firefly was a Buffy in space. Firefly had a Buffy character in space. But that's all my hot takes on Firefly. We're moving on. This is if I had a little switching thing, I'd hit a button and we would do a transition. Although it wouldn't go anywhere because I'm right here. So let me see. Let's do a quick fade in, fade out. We're back. So I think the funniest thing to ever come out of Shut Up Wesley was in the early 2000s when Will Wheaton was on Twitter. He tweeted out a message and said that basically said the next I will block the next person who says Shut Up Wesley. Like 5 minutes later, Patrick Stewart tweets Shut Up Wesley at him. You know, I'll say this too about about Star Wars and those opening sequences. When I was a kid, up until my 30s, and I knew, like, if you have the Star Wars storybook that Penguin Books or whoever put out, it's basically a visual novel, not what gets called a photo novel, I guess. It's a fair chunk of the story, but it's framed by pictures. The whole part of the first chapter is the bit where Luke goes to Tashi Station, meets his ex-girlfriend Cammy, meets Biggs. They look up at the firefight going on in space between the Tantive and the Imperator. Hey, Ricky. I can believe it, Vinny. I can absolutely believe it. So that's all the first chapter, and there's a couple of tantalizing photos, and of course, what got left on the script room floor, the Womp Rat scene. When I was a kid, up until again my early 30s, all I ever wanted was at least the stuff that was filmed, restored, and put back in the film. Then I saw someone who had gone and done it. They put together a special edition first act, as it were, of Star Wars. If Marcia Lucas hadn't insisted they cut that stuff out, I think you would have had a lot of people walking out of Star Wars. It drags on and on and on. It does not make for good film. Everything we need to know about Luke's desire to get off of Tatooine is summed up into him, his uncle being stern, and him snarking back at his uncle. That's what you said when Biggs and Tank left. I mean, it's an economy of dialogue. You know immediately through Mark Hamill's petulance, but bitter disappointment. And Tatooine Sunset, you're dead inside if you don't watch the Tatooine Sunset. I think I do somewhere, passerby. But yeah, you're dead inside if you don't watch Tatooine Sunset, and it just get you right here. The music swells. Luke looks at the sunsets, wonders, because that day is just another day to him. Nothing's different. And as far as he knows, nothing tomorrow is going to be different. And we get that. We get that in a tight, economical package. And then we get into the meat of the film. We're thrown right into it. 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes of, and I think Passerby says, those scenes are very American Graffiti-esque. You're right. But American Graffiti is tonally a different film from Star Wars. Now, I can hold court on how Star Wars is an autobiographical film about George Lucas by George Lucas. I've done it before. And so is American Graffiti. American Graffiti is a Saturday night of George Lucas's life. But they're different movies. They are very different movies. I wanted one thing out of the 97 editions that can you, no, you guys can't see Darth Vader over there, and I can't really pan the camera. I have this, you've probably seen it before. I have a big Darth Vader standee over here. See if I can bring that. That's as far as I can bring it in without knocking stuff down. The original One Last Time. Every video version of Star Wars that's come out has been in some way tampered with by George Lucas. I have a Laserdisc boxed set on a shelf over there that is called the Definitive Collection. And there's no garbage mat cleanup. all garbage mat erasing and restoring the haunted tree on Tatooine. That's it. That's all I wanted out of a special edition of Star Wars. You know, not a dinosaur walking between Ben and the camera, not this weird Jabba the Hutt scene that just stretched the movie out. That's all I wanted. And I think largely that's all any of us wanted. We didn't want, you know, the turgid mess that we got. Luke screaming when he fell off the gantry in Cloud City. I didn't even see Jedi. I didn't even see the 97 re-release of Jedi. So, and I really wish that he had just gone, that he had sat down with Spielberg and Marcia Lucas and said, look, I want to do the prequels. Steven, you can tell a good story. Marcia, you can edit like nobody's business. Let's do this together. Because what we got with his hands all over it, I don't care that it made $1.5 billion or $2 billion in the theaters. It was not good. So, I mean, Star Wars, Empire, Jedi, phenomenal movies. I have no complaints about them. There's no pacing issues. There's no script issues. I mean, you know, nerds, and I am one, so I get to call us that. Nerds like to complain about if the hyperdrive was out on the Falcon, how to get to Bespin, and you know, then people retcon, invent ways that they could have gotten to Bespin, and so on. I don't care about that. The broad Bildungsroman story journey, the hero with 1,000 faces, the Campbellian ascension of Luke Skywalker is told masterfully. The dialogue for the Vinny says the dialogue for the prequels is atrocious. It could have been better. It certainly could have been better. It wasn't as bad as the sequels. Literally, the best part of the sequels is in the trailers for the first sequel movie. If you take that at face value and think that you're going to get the level of Star Wars film, at the very least that you got with the prequel trilogy, then it's good. But once you sit down and watch them, it's bad. I thought Rogue One was phenomenal. I only found one super janky part of Rogue One that just, like, and by janky, I mean like bad stilted dialogue. But everybody else was friggin' awesome, and every other bit of dialogue in it was awesome. And the janky bit of dialogue was, I'm a rebel. I rebel. You know, you're talking about like Force 10 from Navarone about to go down with a lot less of a happy ending. Sassy girl power. Didn't really need that. Any movie going forward needs to be headed by Dave Filoni. Yeah, I would agree with that. Or Jon Favreau, but that's not going to happen. Kathleen Kennedy has her bitch claws in so deep in Star Wars that she is enmeshed in its flesh, like, you know, and she's like Palpatine. I am the Senate. But that's enough Star Wars. Let's move on. Let's move on like I blister in the sun. Now, I want to, before I jump into this, I want to be 100% clear about something. I'm not a lawyer. I've never taken legal classes. I watch Nick Ricada's live streams. I've had Ty Beard on this show a few times. We've talked about legal matters. We've had some fun discussion about legal stuff. And if you don't know who Ty Beard is, if you've missed those episodes, go find them. I should link to them, but of course, I'm not going to do that because this is live. But go find the episodes with Ty because they're fun, they're good, they're enjoyable, they're long. Chalk off some time, put them on in the background while you make Christmas cookies, because he and I talked for a good while. I'm not a lawyer. Nothing I give can be construed as legal advice. The only advice I can give is based on hobbies. Can be based on hobbies and things I enjoy. And even with the things I enjoy, don't do the things I do. So I saw this come across my desk yesterday, really. And it seems that TSR is apparently suing Wizards of the Coast. And I looked into it. Now, one thing I do want to address, because Justin Lanasa, the head guy in charge there, is TSR Hobbies official. He's in the chat. So I want to make it clear. I'm not here to call people out on the carpet. I'm here to discuss the matter at hand. I hope that, should this prove a topic that you guys want to hear more on and more about, and it merits this kind of focus, that I can get someone on the stream to look at this from a legal manner and give a legal opinion, lowercase l, lowercase o, but somebody who understands legal matters more than I do to look at this and kind of unpack things. Not in the sense of giving out legal advice, just somebody who understands the law. I will reach out to some people. I will see what can be discussed, if you guys want that. If you guys want to hear that. So I saw this pop up, and I saw that there was an Indiegogo funding it, which is currently sitting at like 615, 650. I can't remember. But I'm not really here to talk about that either. The Indiegogo people people fund things how they fund things, and I'm not here to discuss that or go into. Ricky says not really. But I mean, you guys are the audience, but we will proceed at pace. I saw this pop up, and I took a look at it, and I want to talk about the things that I saw. Okay, just because I'm you guys, right? Who am I? What am I? I'm an AD&D guy. I'm a nerd. I worked for Gary Gygax, and I play way too many sessions of AD&D. And if you're wondering what happened on Monday night in the Monday night AD&D game, we're playing the Christmas game on Thursday, and I'm going to tell you guys on Friday all about that. It's going to be a lot of fun. I don't dare give away anything because I want to surprise the weekly AD&D crew. So, all disclaimers aside, let's move forward. The first thing that struck me, interesting, odd, curious, on its face, I agree that Wizards of the Coast are kind of dicks. Look, if you play and love 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, or 4th edition, or the variations of third, what they called 3.5, D&D Essentials, any number of the raft of basic Dungeons and Dragons, from Holmes all the way up through the big deluxe black box that they put out in the 90s, to the the rules compendiums, and all that jazzmatazz. 2nd edition AD&D, either printing of it, any rules variant. 1st edition AD&D, original Dungeons and Dragons, some OSR variant thereof. Well, no, let's just talk about things put out by TSR back in the day. I don't care. I make a lot of hay about, hello, Rich Denver. I make a lot of hay about, you punk kids, get off my lawn with your newfangled D&D. And to me, newfangled is anything after about the first half of Unearthed Arcana forward. Okay. But at the end of the day, what you do to make you happy, as long as it's not hurting anyone, is fine. Damien comes in and often talks about his Exalted games. They sound like fun. Exalted was a big fire hose of stuff for me as a game master and as a player to get down with. But by God, Damien has fun with it, and that makes me happy. What should unite us is what goes on at this tabletop. So I'm not going to edition war about Wizards of the Coast's versions of D&D, because technically Wizards of the Coast now has more versions of D&D under its belt as a publisher than TSR did. Wizards of the Coast are dicks. Wizards of the Coast has... They started out with an, we're just ignoring old D&D. Then they kind of paid it a little bit of lip service by getting a company, Bastion Press, to scan and sell PDFs back in the early 2000s. I still have some of mine that I bought there. By yesterday's standards, when you were looking at them on an 18 or 19 inch CRT, they were as crisp as a crab shell. Now I'm like, my eyes. Which is no knock on Jim over at Bastion Press or any of those guys. That was they did the best they could under the circumstances. Gamers first and activists second. Thank you, Rich. Thank you. And they did that for a while. And then 4th edition came out and they found out that some of their books were pirated. Look, you make something digital, it's going to be pirated. All right? If I put these videos behind a paywall and said, no, you guys got to pay a couple of bucks a view, these would get pirated. Not because I'm popular, just because that's how the internet is. That's how things get piratey. Wizards of the Coast shut down the PDFs, and they were gone for a long time. They made great mock of older versions of Dungeons and Dragons in promotional materials, commercials, and print ads for 4th edition D&D. and there were some bruised feelings. And that lasted from the early, mid, late 2010s until 2014, when they basically launched the Great Apology. Unless the politics and religion are based in Greyhawk, then otherwise leave them at the door. That's darn right. Darn right. So basically we had WotC mocking older versions of Dungeons and Dragons, and by extension, the players of older versions of Dungeons and Dragons. Then they came crawling asking for our business, and they released the deluxe edition of AD&D rulebooks. Players, Monster, Dungeon Masters, Unearthed Arcana. A couple of compilations of modules, the S series and the A series. They did the same thing with the core rulebooks for 3rd edition and 2nd edition. And everything seemed to be happy. Until just a few years ago. And what happened next was curious and a little bit sad, because at the insistence of one person, warning labels began to be applied to AD&D. Hey, old sensibilities were bad, and we don't agree with those sensibilities. So here's a warning sticker on old D&D. It is covering up nude studies with stickers, because that's the objectification of women, isn't it? And we don't want that. That's bad. I could spiel you off a list of the women involved in the production of Dungeons. Dungeons and Dragons has its name because Gary asked his daughter what the game should be called. Had her pick off of a list, her favorite one. I got to be careful. Got to drink my water, not get too ranty. Uh-oh. Almost out of water. May have to crunch some ice in y'all's ears. But warning labels everywhere. Mike Merles got on Twitter and called a subset of people who are enthusiastic about the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms in the United States, referred to them as terrorists no better than ISIS. I count myself as someone who believes in the entire Bill of Rights. So effectively, I had Mike Merles calling me a terrorist. The point behind all of this is Wizards of the Coast are dicks. We know they're dicks. All right? They're going to keep sticking content warning labels on old D&D until they're satisfied, or until they just dump. They're like, no, we can't go through all of this and protect you from 1979. 1979 is too powerful. And then they'll just pull it all down. No more PDFs. No more print on demand. No more taking a PDF to Lulu and having a nice bound copy of an out-of-print book. And that's bad. That's awful. It's stupid. Wizards, I don't like you. And I've tried to be... Sorry, my Santa hat's slipping. I've tried to be friendly about it. I've tried to be polite. But there can be no quarter taken where none is given. But, and here is where I really got to be careful where I put my foot down. Literally where I put my foot down, because there's dice on the floor and they hurt when you step on them. But metaphorically, where I put my foot down, I have to be careful about. all of that turgid mess, the way I feel about WotC, the way I feel WotC has behaved, the disservice to the hobby that WotC has engaged in. TSR, and I want to pause here. We're going to pause, and I'm going to step into another mode. And I'm going to say, when I refer to TSR as TSR3, it is not meant as an insult to anyone's business. There is the company that operated under the name TSR from 1973 to 1999, I think, before they dropped it completely. So, I'm sorry. Thank you, Damien. I was starting to feel very tense there. The Bill of Rights guarantees us life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And if a man wants to legally own a battleship or an Apache helicopter, he has the right to pursue that. I hit my dice tray, which was given to me by the wonderful folks over at Raised on D&D. I keep knocking into it and sending it scattering. You got to visit different bars, Chris. Yes, sorry. I was just reading the chat is going. This is the most active chat stream I've had in a long time, and I like it. Which I'll circle back around to talking about the live chat, chatting about the live chat, having a live chat about live chat. It's recursive nesting. Anyway, so TSR, the company that operated from 1973 to whatever until 1999 or so. I don't know the particulars. I'll have to get back to you on that. Ricky says these topics make my skin crawl. Well, we won't dwell on it too long. Ricky. I wanted to address the gorilla in the 10 by 10 room with the chest of gold and the one orc with a spear guarding it. If that's a carnivorous ape, that guy's dead. That orc is toast. Then there was a company that worked to put out Gygax magazine. They published under the name TSR. I don't know what the split point, what the calving was. And good or ill, friendly or not, I don't want to discuss that. I just want to say that there's a break point and there is a third TSR. I put the TSR3 not as an insult, not to get in anyone's grill. I only put it there to make the distinction that we're not talking about, Al Hammock or Errol Otis or the de Trampier estate or somebody suing Wizards of the Coast, or the gentleman that published Gygax magazine suing Wizards of the Coast. We're talking about another entity along the way. So that's a thing that's happening. They're suing Wizards of the Coast. And we have it here. This is in the chat. I'm reading this off the screen. I don't want to be misconstrued. I don't want somebody to come at me with like a cut down edit of the things I've said, like Homer Simpson back when he went to the candy fair. I need some of that sweet, sweet can. Don't do that. I'll point back to this and say I told you not to. So what TSR Hobbies is saying right now, and this is a question I had. This is one of the questions I have, is TSR is suing WotC for trademark declaratory judgment of ownership. TSR will also pursue in the near future having WotC remove the legacy content disclaimer. I'm not a lawyering guy. I don't know if they can do that. Clearly, if they're taking it to court, they've at least got someone who knows how to crack one of those leather-bound books. These don't just look good. They're also full of interesting law tips. And said, yeah, you can do that. My buddy, who I just talked about earlier, Ty Beard, said anyone can sue anyone for anything. I talked about publishing my own AD&D modules. Just screw that 2-page toilet paper that everybody in the OSR has to put in the back of their book. Because TSR versus Mayfair says I can do it. I'm terrified of legal entanglements. They frighten me to the deepest core of my being. A day I never have to go to court is a day well spent. I've been in a courtroom one time for about 2 hours of my life over a traffic ticket, and it was the most horrifying event of legal entanglement I've ever been involved with, and I never want to do that again. So I don't publish my own modules because I'm risk averse. Somebody who was not risk averse, who managed risk differently from me, might say, fuck it, I'm doing it, I'm publishing it. Sue me after it's already out there. Come on. Someplace floating around in cyberspace that's still connected to me, I think it's on a blog that I don't update anymore, are my original AD&D modules that I wrote. If I got a cease and desist from WotC tomorrow, I would take them down. They would vanish. I couldn't stop you guys from swapping them around because I'm risk averse, or a coward, if you will. If that makes you feel better about what I'm saying, I'm a coward. But I don't get involved in legal shenanigans like that. So, seeing this come from Yang, I'm going to answer that question about Merles with a very ugly analogy in a minute. But Mike Merles is basically, well, I'll do it right now. Mike Merles is basically the Shelley Miscavige of Wizards of the Coast. And if you know that analogy, you know that analogy. So TSR is making some statements here in my live chat. Wizards of the Coast has continually bullied TSR regarding TSR's legally owned trademarks. Wizards of the Coast has refused to answer all of TSR's repeated requests that they show any proof of their claims. Wizards of the Coast has vast resources behind them. Hasbro. I think we did some math once. Hasbro is like a $4 or $5 billion cap right now. They're up there. They're big. Now I want to look, pardon me, spaghetti for dinner. What is Hasbro's market cap today? I'm sorry, I was off by a factor of 4. Hasbro's market cap is 13.92. I don't want an answer to the next question I'm going to ask. But what is TSR Hobby's market cap? I mean, Bill Silvey's market cap is like $1. So I don't know what's going to happen here. I looked around initially to try and find the actual legal filing, because if you can get past the party of the first part shall hereafter be known as Bob, and the party of the second part shall hereafter be known as a box of Blamco mac and cheese. Fallout reference for you. Once you get past the therefores and whyfores and nows and these and so on, and get down into the meat of it, it really does just read like a drama. And if person A is suing person B, person A has all the reason in the world to make it sound as dramatic and sweeping as possible to try and convince a judge or convince a jury that person B did something bad and person A deserves recompense from it. And then person B will issue a response that will be equally dramatic reading. The reading of the lawsuit between the Hickman-Weiss couple and TSR, I'm sorry. I was thinking that, like, literally picturing the covers of their novels. And Wizards of the Coast was damn high drama. And we never even got to see a legal response from Wizards of the Coast. So that's where we're at. My question, and this question is not directed at TSR. Again, thank you for making me laugh, Rich Denver. Your Honor, the prostitution rests. I am not seeking a live answer to this question. To go back to an earlier thesis, anyone can sue anyone for anything. I'm looking at a toy over on my shelf over there. It's a Macross toy. I like it. It's the Tomahawk Destroyed. You know it as a Warhammer if you play BattleTech. It's got the big cannons instead of arms and an old school, like 1970s tank, night fighting searchlight over here. And then like a rack of 6 surface to surface missiles here. Big machine gun pod tits on it. I bought that in a now defunct toy store somewhere here in Orlando. If I dropped it and broke it, I'm sure somewhere in the state of Florida, especially in the state of Florida, I could find an attorney who would be willing to help me dig up that toy store and demand recompense. Even if that toy store is defunct, we'd find out who bought them and we'd sue them. And then the judge would laugh at us. He'd get out. So, anyone can file a lawsuit against them. There are people every day who represent themselves and will go down to the courthouse and pay the filing fee and sue the United States government for $65 quadrillion because they don't like Joe Biden, or they don't like Donald Trump, or they don't like the fact that our army is predominantly green with its color scheme, or, they are king of the moon and we violated their sanctity without asking them by landing probes and men on it. And as long as they can do the filing fee, they can do that. So there's no question that you can sue anyone for anything. And I'm not characterizing what TSR is doing as baseless or crazy. I wonder, the question I have is, what is the merit? What is the chance of just suing someone for being a dick about old D&D? I mean, technically 3rd edition is old D&D. Could a bunch of 3rd edition fans sue me? Well, I mean, yes, they could. But could they successfully sue me because I've said bad things about old D&D? I've said worse things about 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons than WotC has said about 1st edition AD&D. I promise you. I promise you. But that is the extent of my question, of my understanding, of my delving into this. I don't have the legal papers. I haven't looked them over or anything. And I saw it come across, and because this has to do with things that are old school and things that are D&D related, I observe and report. And that is exactly where I'm at. I'm not going to offer any grand opinions other than this is most curious, and I'm not gonna I'm not gonna make any judgments, if you'll pardon the pun, about the merit, if you'll pardon another pun, of any of this. I'm just gonna wait to see how it plays out. That's Bill Silvey's 20-minute, 25-minute ramble about it. So, but I thank TSR Hobbies for being in the chat and clarifying a few things. I do appreciate that. But I want to cap this. I want to end cap this because I started it, and then I want to finish it. Nothing I say can be construed as legal advice. I'm not an attorney. I'm a tabletop gamer. I know there's people who are both, but I do not give advice based on any of that. The only advice that I would freely give you guys is how to have a fun game of D&D. And that is that. Let us move on. So I don't know if Yang is out there, but again, he said, isn't Merle's persona non grata? Yeah, he doesn't. They moved him over to development of Baldur's Gate 3. He is project managing Baldur's Gate 3. I'm the Walter Cronkite of D&D. And that's the way it is. It now appears as though the war against the Drow is completely unwinnable. They have overtaken the Gorna firebase. We can hear their magic missiles detonating in the background. Cronkite, jeez. I got a big laugh one day. I was out at Disney. We were eating and drinking, mostly drinking, and other things around Disney parks, not just around the world. It was a friend's birthday. And once upon a time, you could get into Disney, like the 70s, 80s, and 90s in Central Florida. There's no person who lived here during that period who knew someone who worked at Disney who ever paid to go into Disney. Ever paid to go into Disney. And it was, you're right, Yang, it was woke fans that took him down. It was absolutely woke fans that took him down. Just like Whedon, just like Wheaton. But anyway, so we're at Disney, and there's an animation studios tour. Basically, you watch animators in a habit trail. It's one-way mirror windows. You can look in on people's workstations as they're working. It would creep me the fuck out if I was at Disney and I was told, Yeah, don't pick your nose, don't scratch crotch, don't look at swimsuit models online, because people are going to be walking past those windows around the work pods watching you. But at the end of it, there's this bit that Walter Cronkite did before he passed away for Disney. And he's standing there and you watch the short film and he talks about, Disney, yada, yada, yada. And I think he talked to like Michael Eisner or somebody like that, and you watch a short film. So we go in. Will Wheaton. Rich. Aaron, TSR 3 is just a distinction that I made so people were clear that I wasn't referring to 1970s TSR or TSR who published Gygax magazine. That was why I made that distinction, the current incarnation of TSR. So we go in. And as soon as you walk in, because it's Disney and they want you to, like, with people coming in, they'll start if it's like a film strip kind of thing, slideshow presentation, and not a ride where they got to lock you in and move you around, they'll just have that thing on a loop. They don't care if you're filing in late. So we go in, and just as we walk in the back of the room, and they're closing the door for our group watching this thing. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Walter Cronkite. And he pauses for a second, just long enough for me, I'm lit up like a Christmas tree at this point. Marching around in the Florida sun all day in the summer, drinking beers and other stuff. So in that gap before he starts talking, I put on my best Walter Cronkite and said, "It now appears as though the Vietnam War is completely unwinnable." You couldn't hear the next minute of the thing because people are dying laughing. Look, I was funny. It was a funny moment. I don't pat myself on the back very often, but it was a funny moment. I don't know what will. He's had like 3 or 4 transgressions. I just don't fucking know. So Aaron over on Facebook, I hope my answer about TSR 3, why I said TSR 3 in my description, I felt that clarification was necessary from an historical perspective. Do you get that? And since we have TSR, the current incarnation of TSR in the chat, I hope they understand that there's no disrespect meant. Don't shoot that thing at me. There's another Violent Femmes reference because somebody else had one earlier on. Thank you, Rich Denver. I appreciate it. Rich Denver of Bards of Greyhawk, perhaps the only Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 1st edition themed rock band. But let's see. I feel like there was something else on the screen that I needed to talk about. So that's what's that's the news that fits with regard to that. And again, these are feelings of mine I'm discussing. These are not, I'm not telling you to think one way or the other about this. Now if Wizards of the Coast countersued and said, well, we're countersuing because putting ketchup on hot dogs is nasty, I would say that was legally fucking stupid. Pardon my language. I would decry that. I would say that was dumb with a capital D. But I wouldn't say legally that you couldn't do it, because you can. But so I don't. I'm making no value judgments on this. So Damien says, I want Capcom to buy out the Mystara setting so we get more beat 'em up games and maybe a Breath of Fire game taking place in the Hollow World. The Capcom D&D side scrollers were brilliant, and I got to tell you something. The Capcom guys coming into TSR, if you're not familiar with Tower of Doom and Shadow over Mystara, the game engines themselves are built on CPS2 boards. I'm about to go over the cliff with Geeky Talk, but the CPS2 boards, they're the same ones that do the Marvel vs. Capcom, Street Fighter, Turbo Street Fighter, Super Turbo Street Fighter, and so on and etc. So it's really good, just gorgeous sprite work. I mean, you get sprites on screen that do like 8, 10, 12 frames a second, and they're like the size of a pizza. That's just one sprite on the screen. And parallax scrolling, God, just artwork to die for. If you've played Marvel versus Capcom, or if you've played the later Street Fighter games, or if you've played the D&D games, the collection is out on. Well, gonna have to go buy those. Maybe they'll be on sale in the Steam winter sale. But they're beautiful games, and the thing is, the most interesting thing about them, or one of the most interesting things about them, is you'd think, oh, okay, well, it says D&D on it, and you fight some you fight some familiar-ish looking sprites. That's not the case at all. I've seen like mapped out like the different branches you can take in it. There's a choice of which directions you go in dungeons, and whether or not you choose to go into certain towns and take certain paths and fight certain monsters. I wouldn't say it's a computer role-playing game, but from that aspect, and as much as I love Black Tiger from Taito, it's more of a computer role-playing game than Black Tiger is, and Black Tiger has a lot of computer role-playing game elements. It's also older, but to go back to Shadow over Mystara and Tower of Doom, they are 90s basic D&D compliant in how they present characters and how they show the characters leveling. That's right, your characters level as you play the beat 'em up. You don't just get temporary power-ups, but you get XP for fights. There are some paths that are easier fights, but you get less XP, and you pay for it when you fight the boss at the end, because it's like, do I want to grind and have a more powerful character by the time I get to the end, or do I want to have a less powerful character but have to grind the end game and pay a lot in quarters or tokens to get more replays, because you're going to get your ass beat. So those two games deal with dark forces attacking, not dark forces, the first person shooter set in Star Wars, but there are drow, and at the end of it, there's a huge ancient red dragon who's pulling all the strings in both games. And the Capcom devs, the Japanese Capcom devs, went to TSR, and they took adventure modules. Basically, an employee at TSR, and I used to know this and I've forgotten, but an employee at TSR wrote them a module basically their design document came from his home campaign. And so he built this video game pathing system out of his home campaign and worked with the Japanese programmers that then said, okay, this is what we'll do. And it is so cool. You wouldn't think that a game that is basically Capcom versus Marvel, or Capcom versus Street Fighter, or Marvel versus Street Fighter, whatever, would have the kind of depth that it does, but it does. So if you want a very action-y Dungeons and Dragons themed game, grab yourself a joypad and get those games on Steam. $14.99. Mystar canonically don't have Drow. I think the Drow are just too cool to leave alone. Because they are. Different paths lead to different magic equipment. That's also very correct. It's just like a D&D game. You go certain places, you find certain things. You go other places, you don't find certain things. It's just a little hard when you're in the washateria and you got a line of quarters across the thing and a load of whites. You know, to get a full immersed feeling into that, you know. It's just like, oh, well, I'm playing a beat 'em up. But am I playing a beat 'em up, or is it a role-playing game? Well, Vinny, they're on Steam. Go get them. It's Final Fight with Elves, Dwarves, and Dragons. Yeah. What was another? Samurai Showdown? Was that another gorgeous sprite one? I think. Lots of good and I've talked on the show before about computer games, about D&D and computer games. You know, you go all the way back. I would dare say that like the first exercise in programming after 1974 that programmers undertook was you know, putting a Dungeons and Dragons together. Rogue or Hack, you know, those are still huge games today, and they started out on mainframes. I mean, it goes back to like the 1975, 1976 that sysadmins would purge rogue accounts, and Angband and Hack and other things, and to the point where like you get angry messages from sysadmins taped to the sides of the PDP-11. You know, rogue accounts will be deleted. Users will be suspended. So yeah, you know, getting D&D into a computer was the first exercise of computer programmers, I think, ever. And I've told the story over on Ishii's channel, which I guess I can tell you guys. I don't know if I'll ever go back over there, just because I haven't heard from them. And qualified that because I haven't heard from Ishii and company. But I told this story over there, and I'll tell you guys. The source code for text adventures like Zork and so on, it's out there. It's floating around out there. I worked at a company, and we worked with IBM mainframe machines. And our mainframe rigs ran a scripting file fetch dataset display program called JCL, Job Control Language. And Jose and I were goofing around. He's a nerd, I'm a nerd. And Jose and I are goofing around one day, and the discussion comes up, can you write a text adventure in JCL? It turns out you can. There was a brief hiccup in the network. JCL, depending on how you code your output for your program, JCL will prompt the user for input back in a given fashion to a specific terminal. Long story short, because we're getting the evening's going on, I've held my opinion on many things this evening, but I'm gonna wrap it up on a high and funny story. I'm not high, on a high note. Oh. I'm gonna wrap it up on a high note. Sorry, headphones users, with this story. So Jose gets it in his head to take the source code for Zork and see if he can hand convert it to run on a System 390 as a JCL task. A nerdy if admirable pursuit. So he showed me it working a couple of times. Kind of working a couple of times, and said he hadn't really gotten past certain elements of parser input and so on. I moved departments from the IBM mainframe department where Joe and I worked together to internal IT support. That is, I fixed desktop computers because I hated working in the mainframe support. I didn't like talking to banks. I didn't like the weight of the world resting. Like, did you download that Visa VAP file? I think so. Yeah, well, it was empty, and it's costing us $900,000 today to fix it. Sorry? They're going to pull the audio recordings of you talking to Visa to find out what happened. That's a real thing that happened to me, by the way. So I moved over, and Joe continued his hobby. Jose, same guy. One day, certain jobs that would go, you could hear our cubicle area was in the neighborhood of developers who still worked on the IBM systems. The IT support guys were near enough to the mainframe people that when system notifications would come up, you could hear if they had an old school green screen terminal or they were running a terminal emulation, you could hear bloop if they had their speakers on or if they had the volume up on the terminal. So I'm sitting there, blah, 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 probably on the internet, and I don't need to be, but I very audibly hear throughout the cubicle farm that's not ours, beep. Every terminal beeped. Mere months before, that would have been enough to send me into tailspin to find out what that system-wide message was. I didn't care. I kept on doing my desktop PC support thing. I didn't think anything of it. A few minutes later, my phone rings. I pick it up. It's Jose. And he's can barely hold back the mirth in his voice and said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "See what?" He said, "Did you see the system message?" I said, "No." And he was across a main corridor. I had to go out of our office area, across a main corridor, and go into his office area. So I said, "Wait there." And I hang up my phone and I go to where he's sitting. And he's sitting there and he's steepling his fingers. Joe was the last person in the world you would think would be a computer programmer. He was this very slick, ice cold, like Hollywood looking Hispanic dude. Like you'd cast him in as like a crime boss, you know? You wouldn't think he was a nerd that played D&D with me and video games and like computers and stuff. But he's sitting there and he's doing one of these. And I'm like, "What's going on?" And he said, "I put Zork on the live segment and ran it. The live segment refers to the IBM mainframe that is up 24/7, 365 and processing orders, monetary movements for banks, for Visa, for the Federal Reserve. And I looked at him and I said, "You did what?" He said, "I put Zork on the live segment and I ran it. And the output got directed everywhere. And it waited for user intervention." He stopped the largest electronic finance transactor east of the Mississippi. No, by that time we were Star Systems, so in the entire country, by attempting to compile and play Zork, because he didn't realize that was going out as all hands, and that it paused waiting for user intervention. And what everybody in the company with a terminal or a terminal emulation going right now sees is, west of house, you are standing next to a small wooden white house with boarded up windows. There is a mailbox here. Obvious exits are north, east, south, and west, which, if you've played Zork, you recognize is the starting room of Zork. Fortunately, not too many people were paying attention, but someone who was the head of the IBM development department, who calls Joe, because he can see the job owner. It puts who's running what job right next to the job when it kicks off, and this one stopped and waited for intervention. John, I can't remember John's last name. He was an old man, older gentleman, probably in his mid-late 50s. One of those guys who, in the 90s, would have been a dude who like worked on these systems when it was like System 360s, running, computers built during the Kennedy administration, running code built during the Johnson administration is when John would have gotten his start. But he calls him and he says, "Joe, what is this? West of house, there's a white house here." He had already canceled the job and it had gone on its way. And he said, data integrity test. I just kind of gave it a funny intro, and I meant to run it on the test segment, not the production. Oh, okay. Inside the mailbox is a flyer. So that is the story of computer games, of D&D computer games stopping for just a few seconds, bringing the North American financial world to a screeching halt until Joe could realize what he did, release the job, and then cancel basically go into his test segment, which was on a live production machine, and just erase all of that. And now you know the rest of the story. Hello, Justin Lanasa. You came over from YouTube. So I'm pretty much figuring I'm gonna wrap up there. I mean, I'll say this in parting about the TSR thing. Justin, I hope I didn't say anything that was, incorrect. Is not my intent to. I observe and I report, just like Walter Cronkite. I had a lot of fun, guys. This is the same speech format with you guys. It's always been the same talking with you guys. It's always been, but time-wise, this is the new format. I'm not going to be doing midday streams anymore. I can't. Just because so many of you guys miss it. Okay, Rich, you know what, Rich? It's been too long. Let me play for you guys the song. All right, I gotta see if I can do this. I'm gonna play it on the going out because the holidays hit right at the time I was getting ready to devote time to finishing the video, the intro credits. So let me see if I can add this. And I will play you guys Summer Mountains by Bards of Greyhawk. Sorry, a couple of people messaging me. And let's see if I add a media source. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, so let me see if this is going to play. And I apologize if this is a little bit loud. I can't hear it, which is a shame. 100% speed. Okay. Is that better? I brought it down some. Is that better? But yes, I will be a little muffled. And that absolutely beautiful piece of music there is by Bards of Greyhawk. That's Jeremy and Rich, and they made that for me. And I really can't thank them enough for that. But anyhow, I will, I will probably play that for you guys again tomorrow. But anyway, in parting, I say this: the nighttime streams are way better for me. I notice I had a lot more people watching the stream tonight than I have in weeks, which is a lot. I don't know if it was subject matter. I don't know if it was time slot. I don't know if it was a little from column A and a little from column B. But going forward, guys, we are going to be on nights. I will probably do the streams at 9 o'clock at night, weekdays. So thank you, Rich. Thank you, everyone who was here. I'm exhausted. My voice is shot. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I just got done saying I'm going to do it at 9. Tomorrow I may do it at like kickoff at like 8:30, because tomorrow night at 10 I've got my weekly AD&D game, which we moved to Thursday so we could get everyone in. So y'all have an absolutely wonderful evening. I love you all. I mean that. Let's get together again before the holidays.